In my opinion, week 2 of XFL football was actually better than week 1. I watched all 4 games. I absolutely loved it. In fact, I would even make the claim it's very possible I've watched more XFL football than any human being on planet Earth. I'm weird because, I watched all the games Saturday, Sunday. I went to one of the games. I was in Seattle. There was 29,172 people there in the stadium. Gosh, it was so much fun. I want to say, by the way, thank you to the XFL and the Seattle Dragons. They were great hosts. But I would challenge people, I'm weird. I didn't just watch all 4 games. I went back and watched them a second time because I wanted better notes. I really wanted to be able to dive into this stuff. My belief is that media coverage of the XFL is going to fall off as the weeks go on because people don't understand. The media is kind of arrogant towards the XFL as if they have to earn the right to be covered. I don't know. I really, again, I look at how many people showed up in Seattle. There's almost 30,000 people in Seattle at the game. I see social media. I hear all the messages I'm getting. There's a market for the XFL. Is it the NFL? No. But it's a great fan base of people, and I'm going to cover it every single week the way I'm doing today with an entire episode weekly dedicated to the XFL, going through each of the 8 teams, talking about what's going on. It's a great experience, man. I'm not being paid to say this. It's a really good experience to go to a game. It's affordable. It's fun. Now, in my opinion, and I really recommend if you can go to a game, go to a game. It's a great time. Now, in my opinion, the 2 best teams in the XFL are the DC Defenders and the Houston Roughnecks. They're phenomenal. Now, it's not a coincidence that they are the teams with the 2 best coaches and the 2 best quarterbacks. In DC, you have the head coach, Pep Hamilton. He's phenomenal. Then you have the quarterback, Cardell Jones. In Houston, you have the head coach, June Jones, a longtime college coach who's got a great offense, and the quarterback, Philip Walker. So Pep Hamilton is a great communicator. I love him. He's a great play caller. And what stands out about the DC Defenders is how well they execute. Now, June Jones is a great play caller as well. And what he does well in Houston is he does a great job making adjustments, whether that's in-game adjustments or week to week. It stands out the way they use a guy named Nick Hawley in Houston. They thought he was a running back. They weren't sure where to put him. They used him all over the field. And that's because June Jones was adaptable enough to say, hey, we got this really talented player. It would be a shame to put him in a box and put him in one position. They use him all over the field. Now, both June Jones and Pep Hamilton are phenomenal for their football teams. They're so good at putting their teams in a position to be successful. Here's why DC, though, is a slightly better football team. By a very slim margin, DC is the best team in the XFL. Not only is it, first of all, the reason why DC is better is because of their defense. Both teams, DC and Houston, have a great coach, great quarterback. DC's defense is even better. The DC Defenders, man, it's kind of ironic that's their name because they play really sound, really good defense. Now, the next question would be, okay, DC is the best team in the league. Who's the best quarterback in the league? In my opinion, I think it's pretty clear. I don't think this is really a gigantic argument. You could make an argument for Cardell Jones in DC. To me, the best quarterback in the XFL is Philip Walker. He's phenomenal. Philip Walker, PJ Walker, whatever you want to call him. He's not perfect. He's not. But he looks like Russell Wilson running around behind the line of scrimmage. He is so good at using his legs to create throws downfield. He can escape the pocket. He can move around within the pocket. He moves around and uses his mobility to throw the ball downfield. He's not Lamar Jackson. He doesn't run to get yards. He runs between the sideline to sideline, behind the line of scrimmage, keeping the play alive so he can throw the ball downfield. He's got a great arm. He's only 24 years old. He's a possible NFL quarterback down the road. Now, here's a really fun question. The 2 best teams, DC, Houston, the best quarterback. I think the best coach is Pep Hamilton. June Jones is right behind him. But who is the 3rd best team in the XFL? This is where it gets really, really fascinating. To me, it's either St. Louis or LA or Dallas. For me, it's Dallas. Here's why. Yeah. So Dallas is 1-1, and you would go, well, how can a 1-1 team? They're not undefeated. How can they be in the discussion? And how can LA, who's 0-2, be in the discussion for the 3rd best team in the league? You got to realize, first of all, Dallas just got starting quarterback Landry Jones back from an injury. He's only practiced 3 times all year, twice last week leading up to a game. He practiced once at the beginning of the year, got hurt, didn't practice for months. like a month and a half or something, and now 2 practices, then he played his first game. And the first game for Landry Jones with Dallas, it was in LA technically, but with Dallas, was rough. He was not great. But I'm telling you, when you watch him play quarterback for Dallas, he was made to run Dallas's system. He had an ugly game in week 2. But as the year goes on, he's going to get better and better. And I'm telling you, it's very interesting that the quarterback for Dallas was awful last week, week 2, against the LA Wildcats. Landry Jones left a lot on the table, and yet still they won. And week 1, with a backup quarterback, Dallas almost beat St. Louis. That matters. What that says is, hey, this is a really competent football team. Well coached, good defense, good offensive line. They can run the ball well. Dallas is a great all-around football team. And as Landry Jones, their quarterback, gets more reps and settles in this season, they're going to get better and better and better. And their ceiling of any team I've watched this year, Dallas is probably has the highest ceiling because of Landry Jones. We've seen the best from DC. It feels like we've seen the best from Houston. There's a lot of room left to grow in Dallas. Pay attention to the Dallas Renegades. Now, LA is really solid, too. They haven't won a game yet. They're 0-2. A lot of people are like, oh, how could you talk about the LA Wildcats? Well, it's a similar situation to Dallas. The LA Wildcats starting quarterback week 1, Josh Johnson, was injured. So Josh Johnson was injured week 1. He missed that game. Came in week 2. He's phenomenal. He's great. Josh Johnson is a savvy veteran quarterback. We'll talk about him later in the segment when I talk directly about the LA Wildcats, but he does so many little things right that really make LA a competent football team. I think they might not be the 3rd best team. They're probably the 4th or 5th, battling with St. Louis, but LA should not be discounted. They're 0-2, but don't let their record speak for their football team. They lost a tough game to Dallas, and they're better than they were week 1. Now, St. Louis is interesting. Here's why St. Louis is, I think, the most fascinating football team in the entire XFL. First of all, they're 1-1, and they have a lot of potential. But they have 2 really big, glaring problems with their football team. Uncomfortable problems. Problems I don't love. I wish I didn't have to talk about. Number 1, they're really stubborn. They are a stubborn offense. They keep running the ball into bad situations. It drives me nuts. The defense will play a defense which sends a lot of defenders close to the line of scrimmage. Let's say I saw, for example, there was a situation last weekend against Houston where Houston had 8 defenders in the box. What that means is Houston had 8 defenders right around the line of scrimmage to stop the run. St. Louis only had 7 guys to block 8, and St. Louis still ran the ball. It was a bad situation. They were not set up to succeed, and they still did it anyway. St. Louis will not adjust. It's so weird. Whether they need to either have an RPO, which means that they can see, hey, the box is loaded, let's throw the ball behind the defense, or they need an audible system to change the play. Now, the second problem is a lot more nuanced and even more interesting. Jordan Ta'amu, the quarterback of the St. Louis Battlehawks, is terrible when you blitz him. Teams play man coverage and then send the blitz, and he tries to scramble and run away rather than sitting in the pocket and throwing the ball against the blitz. When you're blitz, and by the way, what a blitz is when a defense brings extra defenders after the quarterback. It's a numbers game. If you blitz 6, there's only 5 guys dropping into cover. There's only 11 guys on a football field at one point. So the more guys you bring after the quarterback, the better it is for the passing game because it creates one-on-one matchups and makes it better to throw the ball downfield. Jordan Ta'amu hasn't figured that out yet. He doesn't understand that a blitz is actually a blessing. He tries to run away and scramble and gets caught. He plays right into the defense's hands. What he needs to do, stand in the pocket, find his best matchup, and throw the ball. There are multiple times, especially against Houston week 2, where Houston would play man coverage, send a blitz, a guy would be open over the middle of the field running a shallow crosser, and Jordan Ta'amu wouldn't get rid of the ball. He would panic and try to run rather than throwing the ball against the blitz. Houston will have a lot more success if they do 2 things. They got to fix their 2 problems. They have to adjust to the running game. If a defense is playing 8 guys in the box to stop the run, don't be stubborn. Change your approach. Throw the ball. Do something else other than trying to run the ball up the middle into a no-win situation. And number two, they got to teach Jordan Ta'amu how to deal with a blitz better. He's got other little problems. Timing's interesting. But the big glaring issue with Jordan Ta'amu is he needs to do a better job handling a blitz, standing in the pocket, throwing the ball to his best matchup rather than trying to run away and playing right into the defense's hands. Now, I have a couple other thoughts after week 2. Number one, the refs are phenomenal. I love the refs in the XFL. I love the transparency. I don't know. And it seems to me that the refs are straight up just better in the XFL. I don't really understand. It makes it more noticeable to me just how bad the NFL refs are when I watch the XFL, because they just seem to get everything right. And even when they get it wrong, they call it out and they acknowledge it and they overturn it. There's like no ego here. Egos don't seem to get in the way. It seems like the XFL refs just operate with a value on common sense rather than, the goal of the XFL ref is just to get it right. They don't care about anything other than our job is to make it the right call. How do we get this right? And when they're wrong, they have video, they overturn it. They're very transparent about the whole process. They have a microphone on the guy in the booth reviewing things. I am so in love with the way the refs operate in the XFL. Number two, kickoffs have been more fun. I'm just going to say, the way I watch football, I do this every week. I record about 8 games going on. This is during the NFL season, I'll record about 8 games during the NFL season, and I fast forward through commercials because I don't want to watch commercials. It drives me nuts. And what that means is that regularly I skip kickoffs as well, because kickoffs are just touchbacks. They'll usually literally come back from a commercial break, have a kickoff, then go back to commercial break. And the kickoff that they go back out of commercial break to have happen is just a touchback. It's a wasted play. That no longer happens in the XFL. First of all, it's safer. I really like that I'm not watching guys run 60 yards and destroy each other anymore. It's safer. It's now more of a scrum because of the new rules. And the new rules are phenomenal, but they also encourage kickoff returns. I like watching kickoff returns. They're fun. They're interesting, especially now that they're safer under the XFL rules, where it's more of a scrum than a long sprint into just nailing each other. I don't know, man. It's a huge success. The new rules are phenomenal with the XFL special teams. And I watched the LA-Dallas game. There were a couple big returns. It was fun. I'm telling you, man, kickoffs are phenomenal in the XFL. I'm a huge fan. I also got to point out that the tech has been surprisingly great in the XFL. The XFL is heavily reliant on headsets. Everybody has a headset. No, that's not true. Way more people in the XFL than the NFL have a headset in their helmet. The way that plays are called on offense is through a headset in the helmet. That's not the case in the NFL. In the NFL, only one guy has a headset. And to this point, we haven't seen an issue where a guy can't hear the coach, or there hasn't been any technical errors through 2 weeks and 8 games into the season. That's incredible to me. Not only are the players able to hear the coaches every single time, they also have done a good job navigating. There are moments where a coach is getting interviewed on the sideline through the same headset he's using to call the game, and that hasn't caused a problem or interference either. It's really impressive. The execution with technology in the XFL deserves a lot of respect. They're doing a great job. I have one final thought, though, after week 2 of the XFL. And by the way, you watch on TV, first of all, before we get into the final point, when you watch on TV, there are little hiccups here and there where it's clear that, announcers are still talking over coaches when coaches are calling plays, and it's not quite the smoothest it will be, but it's only week 2. We're 2 weeks into the XFL season. A lot of people are critical. This is terrible. This is bad about the broadcasts themselves. And some of it is directors directing the broadcast are still figuring out the rhythm and the flow of the XFL. It is slightly different directing an XFL game compared to directing an NFL game or a college football game because of the access, the unprecedented access where you can listen to the headsets and listen to the broadcasts and listen to the coaches calling plays. That type of stuff has never happened before. And so I think what we're seeing in the XFL is directors of the broadcast that are learning the flow of the game and learning how to do it. But I'm telling you, by week 8, it'll be it's a good product on television right now. It's going to be an even better product 8 weeks from now at the end of the year. They're just going to get better and better and better. Week 2 is better than week 1. Week 5 will be better than week 4. Week 6 is going to be better than next week. It's going to just keep getting better and better and better as the year goes on. Now, my final point after 2 weeks of the XFL is, and I hope you understand the way that things work. If a team scores a touchdown, they have 3 options. They can go for a 1-point conversion from the 2-yard line, a 2-point conversion from the 5-yard line, or a 3-point conversion from the 10-yard line. There are 3 possibilities for what a team can do after they score a touchdown. And kicking is not an option. Teams have been horribly ineffective with the conversions after touchdowns. They have not been able to do anything effectively. And nobody seems to have much of a plan or much of a strategy. It's very interesting to me. Teams look kind of aimless. They score a touchdown, and they're like, well, let's call that play. Like, there's not a plan for how to execute a 2-point, 3-point, or 1-point conversion. And I get it. On the list of priorities, like when you're at practice and when you're scheduling a game plan or getting ready to beat a team, your plan, you're more concerned about getting into the end zone, period. Teams are far more concerned about getting touchdowns than what to do after a touchdown. But I'm waiting for the coach that finally cracks the code and has a good, solid game plan of how to score points on the goal line. So far, it's been incredibly inconsistent. Nobody has a plan. Nobody seems to know what they're doing. And I would make a recommendation for me personally. I think that the 2-point conversion is the best deal in the XFL. If you score a touchdown, unless you need 3 points, I'd go for 2 every single time. Because a 1-point conversion is really close to the goal line. It's on the 2-yard line. That actually isn't great. You'd think like, oh, you're only 2 yards away. Logically, that doesn't actually make, I guess maybe that's your logic. It doesn't necessarily make sense though. When you're on the 2-yard line, you're actually really crowded. Defenses have the advantage because they have their back to the wall. They can worry about everything in front of them. It's actually a lot easier to play defense on the 2-yard line. Now, the 10-yard line, the 3-point is too far away. On offense would have too much room to work with, and 10 yards to go is too far. The Goldilocks zone, the perfect area to try to get a conversion from, is the 5-yard line. That's the 2-point conversion. If I was an XFL team, I would go for 2 every single time, and analytics would support that. So far, I don't have the stat written down. I apologize. It's very similar, though. It's like the percentages from 2 points and 1 point are basically the same. And if in theory, you have the same possibility of getting a 1-point conversion as a 2-point conversion, go for the 2-point conversion, because if you're going to fail, you might as well fail trying to get 2 points rather than just 1 point, especially if the percentage is the same that you're going to have success or failure. So, in my opinion, more teams need to go for 2-point conversions. That's what they should go for every single time. I think teams are still learning, what's our approach? What are we trying to do? What is our game plan here? Teams still clearly have no idea really how to approach the extra point conversions, and it shows. It shows, we've only seen 1 3-point conversion converted all year, and it's very, very telling to me. So, guys, those are my thoughts after 2 weeks of the XFL season. I love it.